Is there something going on with me for my need to pathologize everything that's happening in my relationship and looking for an answer so that I can fix it? And like, is this even a relationship worth having at all? Like, at what point did someone stop just being an ass and now they're dismissive avoidant, or they have trauma, or whatever it might be, you know? Like, I feel like common sense in some ways has been just cast aside. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige. We've
got a great guest on for today. You're going to love this conversation. We're going to be talking about the pathology of seemingly ordinary things. It seems like everything these days has got some kind of a label as we search for answers as to why someone does the things they do. We talk about this a lot with addiction, but we're going to dive into a lot more topics today. But first, we've got a few housekeeping items to get out of the way. If you haven't seen our Instagram or follow us in the community, we've got new merch up. We've got sweatshirts available. Almost sold out, actually. I'm sorry to not estimate demand properly on those.
Yeah.
Got a handful up there. See if your size is there. If not, I've got some more on the way. They're delivering to the printer tomorrow. Should have them up within the next week or so. If you're unaware, we've got a website with a lot of great stuff on it. You can find our merch there. It's www.twfo.com. We've got a free Facebook community as well, where over 3,000 other wheelies are there connecting, talking about the show, talking about their situations, feeling heard for the first time and probably forever. Non-judgmental community where you can come and vent, learn, listen, teach, whatever you'd like to do. We'd love to have you in there. We've got a newsletter as well. It goes out every Monday morning at like 4 a.m. You can sign up by going to the very bottom of the page, entering your email address, and I promise I will not spam you. I will not send you promotional crap or sell your information. It is just a cool newsletter. I like writing it. I hope you like reading it. Next thing up, we've got a course, Independently Strong. That is our program. If you've been listening to the show for a while and you want to know, how did Paige get to where she is today? Or what is their thesis? What do you do now? I've listened for a while. What is next? We built a program to get you right there. Our program offers hope for those wanting to rebuild the relationship, showing what real recovery looks like and how a healthy, equal partnership can be restored. At the same time, we support those who and recognize that not every relationship can or should be saved. We help them gain the strength to leave if necessary, but from a place of empowerment, not from fear. That is our overarching goal, is to empower you to make decisions that align with your values. We're an alternative to traditional programs like Al-Anon, and our aim is simple: to help spouses and partners live a life of their own choosing, rooted in reality. And we provide the tools and understanding to make that choice with confidence, whether that means repairing a relationship or moving on for a healthier future. And lastly, we've got a sponsor for today's show. Thank you to Soberlink. If you don't know what Soberlink is, think of it like the most high-tech breathalyzer of all time. It's really, really cool. It's super sleek looking. It doesn't look like the kind I used to buy at Walgreens when I used to see how high it could blow in high school. It's like, it's super sleek, and it doesn't have a bunch of cables and wires everywhere. It offers a discreet and reliable way to monitor sobriety. So whether you're navigating a co-parenting agreement or working on your own recovery, wanting to reestablish trust, Soberlink can help bring some much-needed peace of mind. Now, our show is about empowering spouses and partners. Our show is not about placing a larger burden on spouses and partners. And Soberlink and I had long discussions about this, and they are absolutely on board. Listen, this is not going to fix all your problems. It just won't. There's so much more behind the scenes. But what it will do is allow you to trust your gut again. It's going to put you in a position where you're no longer guessing. Is he actually drunk? Maybe he is sober. He said he was. They are not interested in picking sides. They are interested in providing data. That is it. They're interested in providing the best data possible so that you know you can trust what's coming out the other side of the reports. And it's really cool. You can set up sober contacts. So whether that be like a family counselor or a friend or your spouse or whoever, people in your recovery circle, and every time that you blow, these are all scheduled blow times, it's not random, they will see he's still doing the deal. He's sober. She's doing it. It's a really great way to rebuild trust if that's something you voluntarily want to do. Now, on the flip side of this, when it comes to custody agreements, Paige and I both agree this is the only way we would do this. When it comes to custody, you know the information is accurate. So you know that when your children are going off with their with your significant other, your past, your ex, whoever, that they are in safe and sober hands. And that will give you the peace of mind to make those decisions, whether or not you send them out or not. It is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada, and it offers proof of sobriety when it really matters. And that's why over 200,000 clients trust Soberlink, and it's called the gold standard in court. Soberlink has given our listeners a $50 off coupon by going to soberlink.com/wheels to sign up for $50 off a device. Again, that's soberlink.com/wheels. And I think that does it. Did we have anything else?
No, you got it.
Oh, I wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone that sent me like well wishes, kind words. I'm recovering from back surgery. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got this back brace on, and man, it's been hell, but it's been great. I'm in much less pain than I was before. The only pain I have now is just stiffness from being cut open and stabbed, and like
every day is getting better and better.
Just
gradually.
But thank you to everyone that reached out. Like heartfelt. I very much appreciate it. Okay. Our guest today is Dr. Christopher Taylor. He is our show's first recurring guest. He is a friend of the show. If you've been listening for a while, you have heard us mention Dr. Taylor. And he's also the only guest I know that would come on with like 30 minutes notice. We were having our weekly call, and I was like, hey, what do you think about coming on the show? And he's like, you know what? I think I can do that.
I had no say in this.
Yeah, I didn't even ask Paige. So Dr. Taylor.
But I'm glad you're here.
Dr. Taylor, if you're not aware, is an experienced mental health professional, educator, and author. He is a licensed counselor and the founder of Taylor Counseling Group, Texas Mental Health Solutions, and Counseling for the Future Foundation. He also co-founded the Epiphany app, Independently Strong, and hosts Forced Self-Examination podcast. He's currently an adjunct professor in counseling ethics, and he applies existential psychotherapy to help individuals struggling with identity. He was appointed by Governor Abbott and served on the Texas Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors and Behavioral Health Executive Council. Hope I got that right. His work extends to community support initiatives, including Legacy Family Court and the Rural Health Task Force. That word's always tripped me up. Rural. Focuses on mental health in underserved areas. He's also the greatest dungeon master of all time. And thank you. Big round of applause for Dr. Taylor. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me yet again with 30 minutes notice. I'm assuming your last guest just bailed on you. Is that what happened?
No, it wasn't. We were discussing an issue, and we were talking about a podcast idea and theorizing an episode. And then we had our call that we have every week, and we're talking about Independently Strong, and start talking about something on a tangent. It's like, we should just record this conversation. We should just record this. And so as I mentioned in the open, we're talking about pathologizing everything. That seems to be what's happening, especially in social media circles. Instagram and TikTok's really big right now. Yeah. And it's especially relevant today as people increasingly turn to psychological terms and diagnoses and personality labels to explain or justify relationship issues, personal struggles, addiction, behaviors. And so we want to kind of figure out,
pick your brain.
Are we right? Are we wrong whenever we diagnose people? Like, can you learn enough about something on Instagram or TikTok to make determinations that lead you to, investigating and going down these like sometimes years long wormholes where you're labeling somebody? And so let's start with just the very beginning. Like, what does it mean to pathologize something? Like in clinical terms, pathology is what?
Oh yeah, very simple. It's just the study of disease. So it's basically just labeling, and that's kind of like, it's like the fancy word for what do we label this? Some medical doctor did a pathological analysis of your back and gave it a name and said, we are treating him for this, and they have pathologized your back. In mental health, we tend to do this to people, and that creates stigma and labeling.
Okay. Yeah. So it's helpful. We can say simply, it's helpful.
From a scientific standpoint, it's extremely helpful because we need to know what we're doing. And so if somebody has, say, obsessive compulsive disorder, or let's say somebody's just really, really, really tidy and just needs things to be neat, that's very different things, And so a skilled expert would use a guide, a tool like the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, And they would, there's going to be a list of criterion in there, usually about 9 or so. And to determine what the disorder is, or aka the disease is, you would pathologize. So you would go through all of those things, that sort of checklist, and you would say, okay, does the patient present with this? Do they present with that? Are they, highly anxious? We might give some measures. They might be easy tests that are like 9 questions self-report, like the PHQ-9, or they might be more in-depth personality evaluations like the MMPI. And we would gather all of that information, and then we would come up with a label, which, we call it, say, like OCD or something like that. And then we would go to what we know through evidence and science and research is the types of treatments that would work best. And then we start utilizing these types of treatments for a positive outcome. So from a professional viewpoint, it's extremely, extremely important and very helpful.
So when amateurs like us get a hold of this type of information, sometimes you see people that are labeling others. And I cannot just even explain the amount of times I've seen in like TikTok comment sections where someone will be talking. It's like, oh, this person's a total narcissist, or this guy's, he's definitely avoidantly attached. He's, fearful attached. We're throwing out labels. And I think it's helpful that the general public has information. Don't get me wrong. But I almost feel like there's not enough experts that are stepping in and saying, time out, hang on a second. So what is the line, and what does the line look like between using this information in a helpful way and using this information that could be detrimental to your relationships or the way that you understand people in general or your partner?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know that there's a clear line out there. In full disclosure, I had 5 minutes to prepare for this, so I did not do research on that question specifically. But there are a lot of opinions on it. Knowledge is power. Okay, knowledge is power. Knowledge can empower us, but knowledge is different than wisdom. And knowledge is, not always used properly. So we've seen this play out through history in a myriad of ways. Just because you can read the DSM, or you bought one off Amazon, or you just Googled it or asked ChatGPT or somebody, and you read what a narcissist is, it definitely does not qualify you to start to diagnose somebody or pathologize them or label them as something, say, like a narcissist. It takes a trained ear, a trained professional. It takes, years of experience, guidance, knowledge, wisdom to be able to really fully understand those things and be competent enough to be able to do it. The way I kind of look at it is like, there are some things that I can do with a wrench. Okay. I have what I would consider to be amateur wrench ability. Okay. I know how a wrench works. I don't know all the names of the wrenches. I don't do fractions well. But I could grab a wrench or a screwdriver and I can, screw something into the wall. I can do that. It's not going to be great. You're not going to want to hire me to do it, but I could do that. Now, if you wanted me to fix something in your car, I would tell you absolutely not, because I know how a wrench works. I know how YouTube works, but I don't know what to do in your engine. And so you don't want me messing around in there. So that's kind of the analogy I try to use is just because we can use a tool doesn't always mean that we should or that we're using it properly.
Okay. So the one that keeps coming to my mind, and this is something that I see more and more, and it's because I think I joined a support group recently for partners of dismissive avoidance. So attachment theory has really latched on in pop culture and pop psychology as like and I think it's got a lot of validity. Before I say anything else, I think it has a lot of validity. But I see a lot of people labeling their partners as dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant, or I'm anxiously attached or securely attached. And without a whole lot of knowledge on these things, just, you can read a couple of books, you can kind of get an idea about somebody. But this seems like the one to me that is thrown around so heavy. And you've got people out there that are, I don't know, at what point can you label someone else before you have to look in the mirror and say, is there something going on with me for my need to pathologize everything that's happening in my relationship and looking for an answer so that I can fix it? And like, is this even a relationship worth having at all? Like, at what point does someone stop just being an ass and now they're dismissive avoidant, or they have trauma, or whatever it might be, you know? Like, I feel like common sense in some ways has been just cast aside.
Yeah, but that's not new though, right?
Seems like it's just more prevalent, I would say. It's not new. You're right.
No. So I think one of the things we have to combat now is social media. So knowledge is extremely accessible. And your opinion is very easy to share with a lot of people. Before, like in the 1980s, I think in order to get a copy of the DSM, you probably had to go to some like medical bookstore, I don't really know, but it was not available online, at least not in a way that's easy to get. And if you had an opinion about something, you can go to a message board or something like that. But now you can just take your phone and, do a video of whatever you want. And some of those go viral and some don't. But so we have a lot of those now. So this information is easy to get and it's easy to share, and it's going at a radical pace, right? So that sets us up for a struggle, right? For a challenge, in the sense that, we have the ability to say all kinds of things, but it doesn't necessarily make them true or helpful. So when we're looking at when you want to look at your relationship and say, okay, so I read this blog post or I saw this TikTok video of either a professional or a paraprofessional or just some guy, and they say, okay, these are the things about attachment disorder, the 7 things about attachment disorder that let you know that you're married to a narcissist. I don't know if that is an actual article, but I'm sure
I guarantee it is.
I'm sure there's some clickbait out there with that, right? And so you read that and you're like, oh, wow, this is totally my partner. And now you've inadvertently diagnosed them with something. And once we've done that, we've put somebody into a category. And so once you're in a category, people start to expect you to act and behave like you're in that category. And so we do what's called predictive thinking, where we just assume, I know that this is how that person's going to respond. And so once I've made that decision, and it's very subconscious, but once I've made that decision that I know that this is the way it's going to go, I approach it with a self-defeating prophecy. I approach it in a way that like if I know that this person's going to get defensive when I say something, I come in ready to fight. And then that makes them defensive, right? So that's kind of what we've been doing. I don't know if you guys are fans of Animal Farm, one of my favorite books. But have you read it? I think you've read it, right, Matt?
I haven't, no.
Paige, neither of you have read this book?
No.
You put it on your Christmas list. Like, it is like a great book. George Orwell at his best. So basically the story is these animals have taken over this farm, right? And they have become, they can talk and walk around and stuff. And eventually the animals decide that they want to live in a utopian society where they're all equal, okay? So they all decide that they're equal. And then they write on the side of the barn, they paint on the side of the barn, all animals are created equal, right? Beautiful idea. But then throughout the story, they decide that they need some jobs and responsibilities and roles and hierarchy. And then all of a sudden the pigs start to just kind of take on certain roles. And then all of a sudden the pigs start walking around on their hind legs, and then they start wearing clothes like the humans did. And then they start telling everybody else what to do because they are not pigs. And then all of a sudden, one morning when the animals wake up, the barn now says all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. And so what happens when we have this type of thought processes is we tend to group ourselves with people that we think like, that we look like, that we walk like, that we talk like. And we say, that's where I belong. And so when we start pathologizing people and we start using this information that we find throughout the internet or social media, and we categorize people in these places, we turn them into the pig. We turn them into the donkey or the other animals at the farm, right? And we just say that's where they are. Another way to look at it is sort of like the dinosaur movie Land Before Time. I don't know if you guys were a fan of that as kids. Land
Definitely.
Before Time. Well, what do in Land Before Time? They always go to their own people, right? Right? So that's what we do. We naturally do that. We naturally segregate ourselves by our personalities, by our lifestyle. And I'm not even talking about like race or religion, although that stuff's definitely in there, but it's just our standard behavior, the way that we view the world. We always tend to segregate ourselves with people that walk and talk and look like us, because that is just normal. It's normal to me, right? It's normal to us.
Yeah, like when it comes to addiction, I get asked the question a lot. Like we'll get DMs and emails and stuff like that, and they'll describe a behavior that someone has just done, whatever it might be. Like this guy's been avoiding tough conversations, or he's dismissive of feelings, or he's perpetually late. And people will ask, like, is this an addict thing? It's just like this is addiction, right? It's like, I mean, no, not really. If you look at like what is addiction, it's like, it's letting a substance consume your life. It's like using it against, whenever you have consequences in your life. Like a lot of these behaviors these are things that just assholes do. It's just what these people do. And it's just like, I can't attribute much of this to the addiction, but I think we love to look at someone as a whole, and just, it's almost an oversimplification of just what it is to be human, and like all the nuances that make up someone's personality. And that's why Paige's big thing has always been like, separate the behaviors from the substance itself. And I think you can look at attachment theory much the same way. Like I joined a support group recently, and every question in there is, does your dismissive avoidant also do the following? And it'll be a very specific question about what this person's doing. But I think what we're doing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're reaching out because we don't want to feel alone in all this. And I think that's where there is some benefit to these labels and diagnoses and things like that. It's more or less like, but I think we cross a line, and it's almost unspoken whenever we start to use medical language when we're talking about this stuff. Like the group should be called like a group for people with asshole boyfriends or something like that, rather than like this very specific attachment theory language that sort of paints everyone broadly, like with all these behaviors. And like, it's almost like codependency, right? Like Codependent No More is a very popular book in our space. And if you look at the criteria for what a codependent is, I would argue that every single person in the world fits this criteria for the most part. Like, it's just so broad. Like you can, and that's the thing about pathology, is that they're rather specific, right? And they're specific to a particular thing. So helpful, not helpful, I guess it's kind of nuanced in that sense, right? Like it's helpful in the sense that we don't feel so alone, but I think that we can really bastardize a lot of this language and create these ideas about someone or a group of people that aren't necessarily even true.
No, that's correct. I think community is extremely important. We are social creatures. I think that's why COVID was such a weird and difficult time for a lot of people. We are just, it's ingrained in us from our very beginning to sit around a fire and talk about, that saber-tooth tiger that we saw the other day, that ate Fred.
R.I.P. Fred.
We miss you. R.I.P. Fred. But that's what we do, right? And then we tell stories about how awesome Fred was, and then we build larger communities, and we just tell stories. And I think that's why we love going to the movies so much. That's why we love everybody loves the Cinderella story, the comeback story. That's why we love sports, because sports are a type of story. I think that's why we really just love this community, because we are these communal creatures, and we love getting together and telling stories. And so I think the community is very important. I think like your TUFO community is extremely important. I think their attachment community is very important, because it helps me to understand that I'm not alone. We very quickly start to adopt this idea that we are alone, that nobody else thinks like me, that nobody else talks like me, walks like me. Some of us are more introspective than others, and some obsess over that thought pattern more than others. But at some point, every single person will feel like they are alone, right? That nobody else gets me, that nobody else understands. And that's not true. That's not true. You are not alone. So in that aspect, I think the communities are really, really good. And labeling can help me find that community that will help me best, right? So if they do a good job of marketing and advertising the name of this community, and I find it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. This is exactly what I need. On the flip side of that, it can also push people away. who otherwise might have been a great part in the community. Like, for example, here's a great personal example. So a few years ago, I had come to the conclusion, I had discovered that I am a highly sensitive person. And so that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I will tell you how I found out. I was sitting at a noisy bar at lunch. I was getting a nice little, like it was like Friday or something. I was getting like a very unhealthy lunch. And I'm sitting here and I got an email alert on Psychology Today, and it said 7 ways to know that how to deal with such and such as a highly sensitive person. And I was just like, let's see what these people are up to today. And I was a little like, a little hoity about it. I was like, oh, this garbage again. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, that just described me. And so then I sent it to my wife. I forwarded it to her and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And she goes, why are you sending me something that describes you? I was like, oh my gosh. And then I figured out that this was a thing about me. And so I went and I got Elaine Aron's book and I read the book, and then that like totally changed a lot of stuff for me. And I think over the last few years, I've gone through really big changes in my life, all because of that. Now, had there had been a discussion group online or an advertiser or a podcast that said highly sensitive support group for men, you should join, I would say that's dumb. And I never would have joined it. Or I would have said, no, that's not me, or I don't need that because I'm not a wussy like I got a lot as a child of the 80s and 90s, rubbed some dirt on it, like that's not me, right? Or I'm not allowed to feel that way because society tells me that I'm not allowed to feel that way, right? I never would have gone into that group. And I never would have had my life change so radically. And so now I love, I will run into other guys, and I'm very passionate about meeting highly sensitive men because it's, the genetic trait's binomial, so it comes up in everybody equally. But our society has really kind of pushed that down in men, at least over the last few decades. So I love meeting guys and being like, hey man, have you ever heard about this? And I love watching their reaction, so it's really cool stuff. So that's kind of, I don't know if that helps or not. Does that help?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does.
Yeah, I feel like we use the labels as a tool, or it's something as validating, and these groups are validating, so it feels good to not feel alone. But the difference is what we do with it and how we utilize it, and how we grow from it instead of using it as an excuse to stay stuck or treat people a certain way, because that's what we see a lot with the labels. Like, I'm highly sensitive as well. I could easily use that and say, you know what, I'm just highly sensitive. I can't do that because I'm super sensitive. Yeah. But
can't do that today.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use it as a growth tool. I'm going to use it as something like, yeah, this is a part of me, but I can also shift my perspective and use it as something better, if that makes sense.
That's very well said, Paige. I think the easy way to look at it is just to say, like, obviously I am this thing, but this thing is not me. So like I am is a part of me. It does not define me. I will not allow it to define who I am. And I should not expect other people to, tiptoe around me and say like, oh, well, they are this way, so we should offer them excuse, so we should excuse that. I think, if you have something like, say, like ADHD and you want to apply to get a testing waiver or an exemption or more time on your test, that's one thing. But when we leave, academia, like nobody else does that. Mm-hmm. There are no more extensions. Like once you leave there, you now have to, produce the same way as the rest of us. Life does not care that you have this or you have that. And so I think having the knowledge is good, but it's, what are we going to do with it now? Exactly like you said. So what are we going to do with it now? So I know that my partner has this type of avoidant attachment style. Okay. What am I going to do now? That's my question. Right? It's like, what am I going to do now? So I want to go get some support. I want to feel comfortable around other people that struggle with the same thing. That's great. Go do that. You want to cry about it? That's fine. Cry about it. Cry about it for 10 minutes. Lay in your bed and kick and scream and cry as hard as you want. And as my one of my professors when I was in my doctoral program, working on my dissertation, we had found out halfway through building my study that something was built in the study incorrectly. And so it was a part of the research. It was a crucial part. And so basically it just meant that the last 3 months of my life were pretty much useless. And so I just like went off, just like in a fit of rage, just screaming and crying and just everything. And then I remember my professor sitting there, and my advisor, and she was like, "Are you done?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm done." She goes, "All right, let's get back to work." It's like, okay. So you can do that if that's what you need. Take 10 minutes, go scream into the void or whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do. And then let's get working on it.
Yeah.
Like, let's get moving.
And that's perfect segue to my next question is like, how long is too long? How long is too long to understand why someone does the things they do, or why this, like whatever diagnosis they may actually have, the nuances of it, how it presents itself. And then like what you mentioned, then how long are you supposed to sit with that before you do something with it? And like, we're kind of touching on like resilience at this point, right? Like I could ask you, like, you could tell me, we've talked about it in depth, like what it's like being a highly sensitive person. I mean, I'm married to one, and my best friend is one. So,
lucky you.
Yeah, look at me, right? I'm with the HSP whisperer, but neither of you let it.
Oh, and your son is an HSP.
Yeah,
Yes.
as
Yes.
well.
Surrounded by HSP.
Surrounded by them. They're everywhere. So,
Statistical anomaly over there.
but I haven't seen any of you use it as an excuse. Never at any point. And I think for any person who's been an addict and they're in recovery, you'll see the same thing. Like it becomes a source of strength. It is something that it's resilience, right? It tends to be the people that are still in a victimhood or victim mentality that use it and weaponize it. It's like, no, I have ADHD. Like oh my God, I was scrolling through TikTok the other day, and there was this ad that popped up that said, hypersexualization is an ADHD response. It has nothing to do with the fact that you may be a sex addict. It's like, at what point are we going to stop with all of this? You know what I mean? Like, so there's some guy, I guarantee you, that sent that to his wife or his girlfriends. Like, I don't cheat because I'm selfish and I have some serious issues around intimacy. I cheat because that's an ADHD response. So like, how long do you learn about the shit before it turns to just ridiculous?
So I think that's a great question as far as like, how do we separate the two? So that is correct. I mean, we do have some studies to back up that claim that hypersexuality is inside that ADHD, ADD.
Oh, this is true?
Kind of space. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I thought this was just like something someone put out there, and I thought, oh, okay, now it's going too far.
No. So it's like it's accurate that is a possible trait, right? It is not the transitive property does not apply here.
Okay, right.
So yes, that can be one of the many different ways in which ADHD has impacted your life, right? But it doesn't give you an excuse.
Right. Correlation is not causation necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And so the easiest example I use is the judge is not going to care about that when you go into the courtroom. The judge says, hey, Matt, you got drunk and you did something you weren't supposed to do. Maybe it was a domestic violence or DWI or a PI or whatever you do when you're drunk, right? And you got in trouble with the law and they arrested you. Okay. Well, when you get into the courtroom and you tell the judge, well, sorry, like alcoholism is a disease. And so I'm a victim of this disease. And after I have about 4 or 5 drinks, the prefrontal cortex in my brain goes black and is unable to process executive functioning. Therefore, my actions were outside of my control. Thus, I should not be held accountable for my actions for the idiot guy that was drunk. You should go get him. And I'm pretty sure the judge is going to go, cool. So moving on, we're going to go with a guilty verdict, and here's your sentencing, right? So it's like they don't care,
right?
And I think that's the same thing that applies anywhere else. Just because we have this thing does not mean that you get a get out of jail free card, right? And so if there is a guy that's saying, hey, look, like I cheat all the time, and it's because I have this disorder or this issue, then I can't be held accountable. Well, that's come on, that's a bologna sandwich right there. That's like just I'm sorry. My mom made me eat bologna sandwiches a lot as a kid. So we would just be like, that's a bologna sandwich. Like, that's so gross. I have nothing against bologna or those of you that like bologna, but just a personal. She also would cake it in mayonnaise. And so
Yum.
so
I love that shit.
Does this fall
I couldn't eat mayonnaise until I was 30. From the age of 14 to 30, I couldn't eat mayonnaise. I would just throw up immediately.
Does this fall in the same category of foods as pot pie for you?
Yes. It does.
Okay. Forced down your throat, your gullet as a kid, never touching again.
Yeah.
So is there, so you've worked with tons of people and couples over your career. Is there a point at which you let people process this stuff and now you say, okay, now what are we going to do about it? And how do you find that line? Is it different for everyone or?
Yeah, it's absolutely different for everybody. The big thing is the victim mentality, right? Of getting us away from the victimhood, from being the victim. And yes, sometimes things in life will happen to you and you are a victim. Yes, by definition, you are a victim of that. But you don't have to keep being a victim, right? You can choose to move on. You can choose to change. You can choose to grow. You can choose, to be however you want to be. You can choose to be, happy or sad. It's up to you. I believe, and this is very controversial, but I believe that happiness is a choice. I also believe that happiness is not the answer, that it's not the goal of living. The goal of living is not happiness. If your goal is to be happy, then I promise you will always be unhappy because you're always looking at everyone around you who are suspiciously more happy than you for some unknown reason that we just can't figure out. So if I'm working with a patient and we are, trying to process through something, we discover along our way. Actually, Matt, you and I, we worked together on a case once.
Yep.
All ethically correct. There was a release of information signed, and Matt was the sober coach for this patient, and Matt did an amazing job as a sober coach. It made my life a lot easier. Thank you very much. Because he would text and email a lot. So, no, I'm kidding. But it was great. It was a great experience, and Matt did a wonderful job. And what I found for this particular patient was that he discovered in our work together that he was an HSP. He was a highly sensitive person. And what was really cool about that is for HSPs and alcohol use, there's this very magical thing that happens when you use a specific amount of alcohol as an HSP, which is that your central nervous system shuts down.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
And you stop processing things. And it's this cool moment where you're just oh, this is what normal people feel like. And so for HSPs, especially if you have the drinker gene, right? So we've identified this gene that if it's activated in your genetic code, you're predisposed to becoming an alcoholic. Right? It doesn't mean that we will. It doesn't mean that you will. And it doesn't mean that you can't drink normally. It just means that you are more likely to become addicted, right? And so if you have both of those turned on, then, nature has really set you down a course. And so you have some choices here that are going to be challenging to make. And for him, for this particular patient, he was choosing to go home every day and numb with alcohol very aggressively. And that caused some anger responses, that caused some issues in his marriage, and that caused a lot of problems. And then, all of a sudden one day, he learns this information, and now everything that he had in this lens changed. It all changed. The acts themselves didn't change, and the work that he had to do was very, very hard and very challenging. But the lens in which he viewed the world, his problems, changed radically. And he realized that he had choice, that he could choose a sober life, and he chose that. I believe is still sober today now.
Yeah.
Several years now, 1 year, 2 years.
Yeah, right around 2.
Yeah, right around 2 years. So you can do all that. And that started with him saying, okay, I've discovered I am this thing, or that this thing is in me, right? I have discovered that. With knowledge, I have changed my viewpoint, and now I'm going to choose to not be a victim And that's what he did. He chose not to be a victim and empowered himself. Took ownership of his problems in the relationship. He and his wife they were separated. They got back together, did some really hard couples therapy. She, came to her conclusions and through their work together, they are very happy.
So when it's someone with the disorder or the issue, it like we've just talked about that case and then your own personal case and then mine and Paige's as well, it can be really empowering when you have this information about yourself. But a doctor can diagnose you, but I think that the most meaningful diagnoses are those that we make ourselves when we accept whatever it is that is going on with us and we decide to do something with it. I think it's a little harder on the other side of it, like being in Paige's shoes when I was in active addiction, or like anyone that's listening and knowing the truth about their partner, whatever it might be. And they may have come to their own conclusions. Oh, he's totally a narcissist. He's definitely fearful, avoidant. He is an alcoholic. There's all this information that you have, and there's a lot of shame and guilt and anger that comes with that. So what do we do now? What do we do now? Like at what point do we say, I've got to do something about this? You can't stay stuck forever, right? That's been our thing for quite some time. That's kind of our new battle cries, that we can't stay stuck forever. Like there has to be action here. There has to be action. So I guess what I'm asking is from the other side of this, I think there's so many more diagnoses made by spouses and partners than there are by people who actually have these issues. And so at what point are we just avoiding accountability to do what we have to do next? And how does it become a crutch in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, if you're definitely getting this information and you're saying, okay, so I've learned that that this person is suffering from, whatever, attachment disorder, alcohol, whatever it is, right? And then you know that, and then you choose to do nothing. You're becoming your own worst enemy. Like there's nothing else for you to do. You can either choose to leave or choose to work on yourself or choose to motivate your spouse. But either way, learning this thing isn't really going to change anything. Now, where it will help is that if you then go and work with a professional, or you're able to get into some couples counseling and you say something like, hey, I believe, or I suspect, or I wonder. The phrase "I wonder" is a wonderful phrase. Mm-hmm. I wonder if Jim is, sorry to all you Jims out there, if Jim is suffering from some kind of attachment avoidant issue, or avoidant attachment issue, and then the mental health professional or whoever you're working with can say, okay, if that's the case, here are some of the things that we would know about and look for, and then now here are the tools that we can use to combat those things, right? So, I'll keep coming back to HSP because that's something for me, right, that I know very well. And so I know that my wife has this big, massive family, and she was smart. She didn't introduce me to them until we were really together. Okay. Otherwise, things might be a little different. A huge, massive, awesome family. They're super cool. But they're so big that it is, whose birthday is it this weekend? It's nonstop. And now we have all now we have kids and all of our cousins have kids. And so it's just I was literally at a baptism for my third cousin yesterday,
That's deep. That's deep.
Maggie's it was Maggie's cousin's daughter. I think I don't even know what that is. So I don't know. I'll come in there and I'll meet somebody and they'll be like, oh, how are you related? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just wandered in off the street. I'm not really sure I'm in the right place. But it's such a big family. Now, for a lot of people, that's really cool and that's fun and everybody loves that. Okay. But I come from a small family and I have one brother and that's it. And I have some cousins, but I don't really know their names. And so that's just kind of like my life as a kid growing up, right? I have no control over any of that. And then I also, now let's talk about the fact that I'm a highly sensitive person. Okay. So now this baptism I'm talking like Godfather style, right? Like, do you renounce Satan and all your evil ways? Like the whole family's there, everybody's there, and it's noisy and it's loud and it's a lot of people I don't know. And they were having quiche and I'm not a quiche fan. So I got to smell quiche all the time. Everyone's talking, so it's really loud. There's a lot of champagne. So you got, popping corks everywhere. And I'm an HSP and I'm just like, this is fun.
This is okay.
Fun. So what can I do? Right? Okay. So I can either say, okay, I know that I'm going to go into this place where I'm going to be essentially miserable, right? I can choose to just be dragged along. I can choose to down a bottle of champagne, right? And have that solve my problems. I can choose to be a total a-hole to everybody while I'm there, like, oh yeah, so happy for this baptism, right? Or I can also choose not to go, right? I can say, hey, look, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling up to it. I don't want to do this. But every time I do that, what happens? I'm just kind of giving up, right? So what do? I say, okay, what are my options? Well, one, let me prepare, right? So maybe I talk to my wife the night before and say, hey, we got this thing coming up. It's going to be, it's going to set off my spidey senses. Would you be cool if I slept in for like an hour tomorrow morning? Give me a little bit of extra rest. Maybe that'll give me some preventative measures. I'll be a little bit more joyful. Two, I can just choose to enjoy it. Right? I can just choose to have a better attitude and say, you know what? This isn't about me. This is for somebody else. Let me show up. Right? And then three, I can build myself a retreat, right? I can build myself a safety zone when I come back. And I say, hey, okay, so once this is over, I'll take the kids, I'll go to the grocery store, you can do your thing, and then we'll come back, and I just need an hour to decompress, right? And so then I'll go into I have like a fortress of solitude in my house that I've built, and so, I'll go into my home office and I'll relax. I'll listen to some music. That always helps me ground and those things, right? So I could just say, hey, I'm an HSP. I'm not doing this, or I have HSP-ness, I'm not doing this, right? HSP-ism, right? I'm not doing this. I can't do this, or I shouldn't have to do it, or I shouldn't be required to do this thing. I can let this label dominate and destroy my life if I want to. Or I can choose, quite simply, to not be a victim. I can choose to say, this is just something that's out of my control. I didn't choose to have this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't flip the switch. I don't have power to change my genetic makeup. So let me look at the things that I can change. And so I think to kind of bring it back, that's what a professional would work with you on. I say, so we know this, great. Let's move on. So what can we do now, right?
Love that. I love that. And that's the definition of resilience, essentially. Let me ask you a question, though, kind of poke and prod at that a little bit, because you said it is kind of controversial that you believe you can choose happiness. At what point or where does toxic positivity fit into all of this? Because I think I've seen people minimize situations that are really, really bad and sometimes even dangerous. And they'll say, well, at least it doesn't hit me. Things aren't that bad. So like at what point, like where do you draw the line? Is it about safety? Is it about, because you're talking about something I 100% agree with you when it comes to something like what you're describing. It's like, yeah, you get to decide to suck it up and enjoy the damn thing. It'll be great. It will. Yeah. And you can take some preventative measures. But what about, like, speaking in the context of an addicted relationship where you have someone who's struggling really bad and they've got someone who's drunk, they're abusive psychologically, maybe physically, and there are communities out there that tell them, like, well, just focus on what is good about your life. Like, do we ever run into a situation where that's problematic? Like, at what point does it become like, hang on, stop doing that. Look at reality.
Oh yeah, for sure. So one, I want to separate abuse out of this conversation because I want to make sure that it's not confused. If you are in an abusive relationship, you should leave that relationship. If you are being hit or, you threat of violence, you feel unsafe, you feel uncomfortable, you should get out immediately. I don't care what your friends or family say. I don't care what God says. You need to get out before you are dead. because it will lead to something very, very unhealthy for you and your children. And I think, Matt, actually, you sat on a jury trial about a case like that.
I did, absolutely.
Yeah, where somebody was they got into a domestic violence incident, and somebody was, I think, accidentally stabbed, I think is what it was, or intentionally. I don't know.
It's not how the jury found it.
That's how the jury found it. Okay, yeah. So it's not a joke. Get out, get safe. Like if your house was literally on fire, would you be like, wait, no, we should consult with everybody first and get all the photos off the wall? No, you get out of the house. Get out. So just get out, right? So I want to take that out of it. Then we can talk about toxic positivity. So kind of going back to social media, and again, I don't want to be like a social media basher and say like it's all like social media has ruined everything for us, because like all tools, like the printing press and everything that came before it, it is a valuable tool that can do some great stuff. But there was a phenomenon that happened in 2009, and that is the year that we first started tracking preteen suicide on an index, because it became significant. Before 2009, preteens just didn't really kill themselves. It wasn't a thing that they did. It was not behavior they engaged in. And then in 2009, they started doing it. I find it very interesting that that's when Instagram was released as an app on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you come to your own conclusions on how to utilize social media for you and your family, but just, be aware, right? So I don't want to be a social media hater and tell you that you have to get off of it or something like that, or it's not healthy for you. All things in moderation, right? So enjoy it. Get your memes. Everybody loves a good meme. I wander onto the internet sometimes hungry for a meme or two, so get them, laugh about it, whatever. There's great communities online too. I'm in some online communities that are wonderful for me, that are creative outlets or, supportive in other parts of my life. Like fly fishing blogs where we talk about, is it good to fish today? Just like which bugs should I try to emulate, next week while I'm on the river,
So is this the right larva for this watercolor?
Yeah, exactly. Or say is it 22 or 24 midge? Like, what am I doing? So yeah, that's all great. That's all wonderful, right? But here's the problem with social media is that we typically only post good things about our lives. We tend to only post those wonderful, beautiful photos of our feet that everybody has asked for and desires to view, sitting in the sand on our perfect little family vacation, right? I saw a LinkedIn post the other day, which I don't even go on that much anymore, was a lady who, her and her family had like 3 kids. Her and her husband both own their own businesses, and she took a photo of her family on vacation and was like, it's so great to be away from work. And we finally got our own family vacation. And then she's like posting this on LinkedIn, like while she's on vacation. And I was just like, lady, like just be with your family, Yeah. Take your photos. Those are great. Post it later when you come back, whatever, but I think she's kind of missing the point a little bit. We're not going away. And so what we see when Matt rolls in with his brand new F-150 Raptor, super awesome truck, is
definitely don't own that truck.
I'm his neighbor, and I look at him roll up in this thing, and I go, man, Matt is like killing it over there. And what I don't know is that Matt is, an alcoholic, and that he is in a really negative place with his wife, and his wife is like seriously considering leaving him.
And I financed 120% of it.
You're in massive debt now. Yeah. You have no idea, right? And so I don't know those things, right? So all I see is the good, and then I start to compare, right? Comparison is the thief of joy, right? We all know that. So I start to compare my life to the shell of what I can see of others. And I make very quick judgments, and I decide if I am happy or not, if I am good or not, right? And so when people say you should focus on the good things in your life, yes, that is true. You should do that. You should focus on gratitude, and you should be happy for what you have and for what's in your life and all that stuff. However, there is always time to be sad. And you should be sad, right? You should be anxious, right? Anxiety lets us know that we're alive, right? Without anxiety, we'd all be walking around in a Zoloft coma, which, I mean, sounds great, I guess. We'd all be like the characters from WALL-E, in our little chairs, right? The humans from WALL-E, just being bussed around. We should be sad because if you're at your mom's funeral, like, you probably want to be sad there, right? So happiness is not the answer. The goal, it's not our goal. Our goal is to better understand our capacity for emotional regulation, and how to connect more deeply with those around us. That's it.
So someone in a relationship where there's a lot of psychological abuse, gaslighting, there's lying, there's all these behaviors going on. Do they just say, well, it could be worse? Or at what point, what I'm asking is, at what point do we say the shit stops now? Like, I can't deal with it beyond this. It's when it starts to affect us. Is there some kind of physical indicator?
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer for you there, unfortunately. I think we all kind of have a bit of a bullshit meter. And
I like that.
When your bullshit meter gets to a certain level, you're kind of like, okay, I'm done now. I am now done. Right. I think about it with my kids, right? It's like, hey, I tell them to stop. We're having fun, right? We're doing something crazy. We're running around the grocery store, right? The floor will be lava in 10 seconds if we don't get out of the produce aisle, right? And we are having a blast, and we're having a great time. Nobody else in the store is having a great time, but we are having a great time, right? And then, we play another game, and then we play another game, and then we get to a point where I'm like, okay, I actually do need to check out, so I need you to stand still for 5 seconds. And then they don't, you sort of get like, okay, all right. And then it's like, and then they still don't. And you're like, all right. And Paige has no idea what I'm talking about because she's a perfect mom.
Sure. Yeah.
But, and then you get like to that, whatever it is, and you're just like, okay, now the switch is flipped. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what it is for you. I don't know what your level of tolerance is. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what your history is. I don't know the how hurtful or painful it is that this person is doing to you. One of the questions I would ask is, is this what you feel like you deserve? Are you living a life that you feel like you deserve? And I think the sad part is that oftentimes we have sort of categorized ourselves and labeled ourselves and said, well, I belong with this group of people. And so I am supposed to tolerate the behavior of this group of people because it's where I belong. Mm. It's as good as I can get.
So last question here about labels and the pathology of seemingly everything today, whether it be addict or such and such attachment theory or ADHD or whatever it might be. I have this theory, and I don't think it's singular in the sense that this is the only thing that people are trying to do, but I think that so much of it is that we're trying to solve a puzzle. The more that we can learn, the more that we can label, the more labels we can gather and apply on somebody, the more we can figure out how to fix them.
Yep.
We can fix them, right? Because that's the question we generally get asked is, how do I fix them? And you as a mental health professional, do you see this as well? Do you see people come in the office and it's like, how do I get them to do X, Y, Z? And the sessions end up being all about the spouse rather than them. How do you shift that focus?
Yep. Every single patient I've ever had has always said the same thing in the first session, which is, I just want. They've all said that every time. I've said it too. I just want. I just want. Well, you just want that one thing. You want them to change. You want this. You want to be happy. You want whatever it is. But you get it. And tomorrow, you're going to ask that question again. Mm-hmm. You're going to say that thing again. I just want. I just want. It's not, I think a good way to look at it is, it's not about fixing because you're not broken. Right? We fix things that are broken. Well, you're not broken. We fix backs, right? Chiropractors.
Fingers
right?
crossed, yeah.
Yeah. Chiropractors got a whole job, fix stuff, right? Fix your back, right? You break something, you break a bone. Well, we'll fix that bone. You break a window. Okay, we can fix that window, right? But we're people. We don't fix people. That's not the goal. You got ADHD? Okay, you're going to have ADHD for the rest of your life. That's great. Awesome. Cool. Who cares? Right? You get some medication. Awesome. That helps you. You're able to focus better. That's great. That's an edge. Awesome. Use it. But there's nothing to fix because there's nothing wrong with you. Right? Right? Live as a human in part of the human condition. Right? We're not here to fix people. You cannot fix your spouse. You cannot fix your friends. Your mom has been trying to fix you for a long time. And she is really, really bad at it. But she's quick to give free advice, right? Call your mother. Yeah. Listen to your mother. Right? but we can't fix people, right? So if Jim is the way Jim is, we can either tolerate this and say, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm going to continue to live this way, or we're going to work on it. I love this person. I believe that they can change and that they want to change. And then we can do that. Or maybe it's just as simple as just learning better communication skills. Maybe it's just as simple as actually listening actively instead of listening for your turn to talk, right? Because that's what most of us do is we sort of have decided, like we get into this fight and we're like, we've been here before. And we talked about this predictive thinking. So I'm not really listening to you. I'm listening for you to go, so I can jump in.
Yeah.
Right. And like, no, you stop talking. That was a pause. It's my turn now, and that's what we do, right? We do that, waiting for our turn to talk, to justify ourselves, to be the prosecutor, to justify our viewpoint on things. When really the simple solution is let's listen actively. Let's hear that person. Let's be empathic. Let's try to be in their shoes with them. And then we can make a choice. Either we can work on this together and we can figure it out through, professional help or coaching or self-help books, whatever it is, or, break up, separate, get out of the relationship. I know it might seem impossible now, like you're in quicksand or you're stuck or you're trapped, but a decade from now, it won't feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you've highlighted something there. It's like things can get to a point where your values are being stepped on so much that it's just untenable. And more understanding, more knowledge, more reading, more research, more TikTok videos are not going to fix this person. So it's true that we cannot fix other people. At some point, you have to decide what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. And then you have a decision to make. Yeah. And you're right. It won't be the end of the world.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for people to break up. I don't think that's the simple solution. I'm not advocating to tell these other groups that they're doing something wrong or anything like that. But I am advocating for you. So if you are in an unsafe place, you should get out of that unsafe place. You do not have to be a victim. You can be empowered. You can empower yourself. You can choose to be happy. You can choose a life that you want. You can choose to be anything. Maybe not in the NBA, but anything else.
Damn near anything else. We can get you there. Okay. Awesome. Paige, did you have anything else?
No, thank you.
I think we've covered it here. I think we've given people some pretty good context that more understanding, more pathologies aren't necessarily going to fix anything. It does provide context, and context is important. It is important to understand. But at some point, you reach this finality, which you just described, which is that you can't fix other people. Learn all you want. You go get a doctorate in it. You're not going to fix other people until they want to fix themselves. We kind of talked about some resilience there as well, which I love that. We need more and more and more talk about resilience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to drive that point home, Matt, I have a PhD in this. Okay. And my personal life has problems. All right.
I knew it was coming.
All right. My marriage ain't perfect. Right. Right. My relationship with my parents ain't perfect. Right. My relationship with my kids is not perfect. I do dumb things all the time. The difference is that I can go, oh yeah, I did that dumb thing that I shouldn't have done.
It's the awareness, right?
It's the awareness.
It's what you do with the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
But trying to teach someone that doesn't want to learn is impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like that's the answer, right? I mean, it's not the solution. I mean, if it was, then everyone with a PhD would be like walking around on clouds, just being like, "Man, life is great."
No, it's perfect. I figured it out. I've arrived.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instead, they study things like existentialism and then wonder what the hell we're doing for the rest of their lives.
I do, yes. I do wonder that a lot. Actually, so I have written a book on that. It is called A Process for Purpose. It goes through a lot of kind of what we discussed today. I'm going to put out the good vibes in the universe right now, and I'm going to tell you that book's going to be out next year.
Let's go.
I'm going to say that right now. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but I'm going to believe it.
It's going to happen.
I'm going to believe it. It's written. It's done. I thought the writing a book was the easy part. Apparently, it's finding an agent to find you a publisher. That seems to be the trick. So,
well, maybe, just maybe, a listener does that very thing, and they will reach out.
That'd be great.
You never know. So where can people go to find out more about you? I know you've got a newsletter that you publish every week, although I'm waiting on this week's.
Yes, this week was bad. I forgot, actually. I'll just throw it out there. I went fly fishing with my family last weekend, and I decided not to do a newsletter at the last minute and just focus on my family, which was really wonderful and enjoyable. And then I meant to get today's out this morning, but I forgot. And then you called me, and now I'm here doing this.
Way to be flexible.
But, it's fine. Anyways, you guys can find anything you want to know about me at taylorcounselinggroup.com. And you can call the office at the number that's on the website.
Hey, and this, just briefly, I know you've only got a couple minutes here, but the foundation, we've talked about the foundation on the show many times, but discuss what we're doing with the foundation. I know that's coming up on the end of the year. There are a lot of people that do set aside money for giving. And so if you're considering it, how about this?
So the Counseling for the Future Foundation, we started a couple years ago. Essentially, one of my support staffers, who's a student in school studying to be a therapist, just kind of asked to chat with me. She had found out her dad had had a really bad financial event occur and was now unable to pay for her school. So that she was going to have to drop out of school and go get a full-time job or take out huge loans. And she just didn't want to do loans. And basically it was like, my dream of becoming a therapist is over. And she was about to quit and everything. And so, I realized that this is a significant problem, that what we have is, one, Texas ranks last in access to mental health care, right? Which is just terrible. So our rural counties are not getting what they need. Our cities are not getting what they need. Our veterans population is not getting what they need. And a lot of this is because we do not have enough therapists out there. There's about 30,000 licensed professional counselors in the state, 70,000 in total if you count all mental health professions, and Texas is a big state. So it shakes out to be something like 800 to 1, right? Well, one therapist can't treat 800 people. So we find that there are several therapists or people that wanted to become a therapist that couldn't do it because they couldn't take on the loans, right? The loans is because you remember, you got to get a master's degree in this, right?
It's not cheap.
This is not cheap. And some of these schools are private schools. It's just very expensive to become a therapist. And then, you're not making, NBA money. Right? You're not like Shaquille O'Neal. They're not going to make you a custom Cadillac, right? To fit your body size, like that. You just don't. I mean, what you're hoping to make maybe in the mental health field is like 85 a year. If that, it's not great. And if you go work for a school system or a nonprofit or a mental health, a local mental health authority, you're talking about way less, right? And those are the people that need help the most. So we offered to pay for this girl's school. We're just like, hey, we'll just pay for it. So we picked up the tab and we paid for her school, and she was able to stay in the mental health field and was actually able to get a job working in a school system as a counselor, providing very, very needed therapy to kids that otherwise would not have access to it. And so that's kind of the idea behind the foundation, is that we take a very relaxed approach to fundraising and just relaxed and fun. That's kind of the vibe we have. We keep costs low. I think we have pretty much no administrative costs. And so every dollar we raise goes to provide a full ride scholarship to a student in school studying to become a therapist. Today, I think we have our 4th candidate in school right now, actually, I think. And so she was blown away when we told her that, hey, you don't have to pay debt. Like you're not going to have debt. You're going to be able to walk out of here without any debt. And you might ask, like, wow, aren't there other programs like this out there? And no, there are not. The more you move up in academia, I think a lot of people don't really know this, is that the higher you move up, the fewer and fewer grant dollars and scholarships are available to you. And especially when you go into a place like mental health, it's virtually non-existent. Or there might be like a $500 one. And yeah, every dollar helps. Yes. But abnormal psych textbook is like $250. So, so yes, every dollar helps, but in many ways, that's just kind of a drop in the bucket. And there's not enough of those to string together, to really make a big impact into somebody's life. So you just find that you get fewer and fewer resources. And so this is what we wanted to do. We just said, hey, we want to raise money. We want to put at least one kid through school. We did that. And so we want to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's the coolest feeling in the world on the other side of that. Because we just look at, we have a criteria, whatnot. We've got tons of applicants and you're going through these. And then whenever you hear the other person on the other side of the phone, like the joy and just the shock in their voice that they're not going to have to pay for school, and you know how badly they want to help, that is the coolest feeling in the world. Like that is the coolest feeling in the world. Yeah.
So if therapy has impacted you in some way, has been a positive thing for you in your life, I would love for you to help us pay it forward. By donating to the charity or to the foundation. It is a 501c3, so that is a tax break for you, and you will definitely help somebody in need. And don't worry, you don't have to give us $30,000, because we also provide a monthly stipend for them as well, or a semester stipend for them as well that helps pay for their books and other things. So, I mean, if you can give $10 a month, that's going to pay for a book for somebody at the end of the year. So whatever you can do is more than enough, and we appreciate you and thank you. Yeah,
and you can find out more by going to counselingfutures.org. You can donate, read more about it. Everything you need is there. All right, well, I think that does it. I know you've got some other meetings to get to. Thank you so much for making this one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you enough for doing this on the fly, and hope to have you back on the show in the future. So
yeah, anytime.
Thanks, Doc.